Okay, let's see. We haven't met for a while, so we should probably just see what, basically the 4th, right?
Oh.
You said we have Sven today. What was that meant to mean?
Oh, so he was going to
Canonical service.
Present on.
He was going to present on, I think, something multi-cluster.
I thought it was canonical service.
Okay.
Oh, canonical service, yes, correct.
Okay, are there any things that people want to talk about coming out of KubeCon? Anything that anyone saw that they thought was worth mentioning? I'll put on that agenda.
So just a second. Wait.
Mandar and I was going to go to you in a second.
Right.
You guys gave a talk on the V2 stuff, so I was wondering if maybe you could share just a little bit about the feedback you got with the group and how that went.
Yeah, so we gave a talk about V2 telemetry, and I mean all the questions that we got were mostly related to like WASM and how that fits into the whole system. We did cover WASM on a few slides, but like that wasn't the title of the talk. Though we definitely conveyed the fact that the extended team is delivering that. So, like some of the other interesting stuff from a telemetry standpoint was like Cilium released Hubble, which is L3 telemetry using eBPF, and then they go back up to Envoy for L7. And would be good to investigate it kind of one level deeper. Roman has already looked at it, like some, but I think we should be able to do something more there to see if we can get some L3 telemetry for free.
Okay. But the WASM feedback, did it seem like people are pretty excited about using it and raring to go, or that they're just sort of curious about what that means?
So at least the people I talked with, they were all very excited about the fact that it is going to be extensible and they're going to be able to like add this extra behavior.
Okay.
And for telemetry specifically, yeah, they were very excited that they're going to get telemetry for less, far fewer resources than they do today. So I think both those were positives.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone wanted to share about KubeCon and as it relates to policies or telemetry before we move on?
Go to the canonical service.
Okay, well, I guess.
Trying to think if there was anything else from KubeCon that.
Oh yeah. Oh, go on. I was just going through some notes.
In regards to WASM, people ask questions mostly and just trying to figure out and felt like somewhat bleeding edge, so they needed some guidance what to look for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interest, but not much actually concrete, mostly just investigative.
One feedback that I got, which should feed into how we decide to do the mapping, was the mixer language was too difficult to pick up, which and this was kind of a meta feedback, right? This was by someone who works with, like, they need to explain to their customers how to use Mixer.
Okay.
And the interface that Mixer has with customers is just through configuration and through our mapping and that language. And that was difficult to explain. So that was specific feedback. Yeah, we should think about that
So this is
as we move forward.
okay.
And then there was also like related comment about metrics consumability. So SMI metrics give people a standard way to consume telemetry, not just produce it, so that they can write tooling and whatnot on top of that. And our answer has been use Prometheus
Yeah.
as that standard. But regardless, that did come up several times.
Interesting. I mean, there should be a pretty easy way to write a little layer over Prometheus that exposes
Yeah, that's
SMI.
exposes.
So,
It does.
okay. Well, I wasn't there, so I don't have anything else to add. So if there's nothing else, Sven, I will turn it over to you for
Sure.
your proposal.
Do you want me to present, or do you want to just click on it?
I can click on it
Yeah, you can click. Good.
and then share this.
So this is a proposal to introduce a new label into Istio that basically represents the canonical service that a workload represents. If people remember the early days of Istio, we used to have like source service way back when. One of the problems with that is we didn't derive that very usefully. It wasn't actually consistent between the destination and the source, and had a bunch of problems. So we ended up taking it out. So this is kind of bringing that back, but in a way that's a little bit more standardized and consistent on both client and server side. So both client and server will have a canonical service, and it will be consistent. And one of the, so actually there's a couple, well, background, let's get the background.
Okay. Skip this.
So the goals are probably the interesting part here. So one goal is that there's exclusivity. So I'm skipping the first one. So that each and every workload will have exactly one and only one canonical service. And everyone will have some canonical service. So it will basically always exist. There'll always be exactly one. And that gives us exclusivity. So you always know for any workload which canonical service is part of. It can't be part of more than one. It can't be part of zero. One of the other things we want to do is make sure that we're not asking every user of Istio to go and fill out a label in order to use Istio. So we're not going to require someone to do work. So this proposal has a bunch of heuristics to try to generate a name in case the user doesn't provide one, but allows overriding it if there is an existing one that they want to use. And then once this name exists, we'd expose it as Istio attributes in the Istio attribute vocabulary on both source and destination, and then use those in the telemetry output. And this proposal explicitly does not include using this as a policy attachment point sort of explicitly or for enforcement. That's in future work potential. It also explicitly does not support these canonical services spanning across multiple namespaces. So they'd only be within a namespace. So yeah, so those are the goals. The proposal is basically we introduce a new standard label. The strawman was service.istio.io canonical name. I'm not tied to that at all. I don't actually really care what the service name is or the label name. So if you guys have a better name, great. And then I think the important part is we would add code to the injector that would automatically fill that label out. So that label would basically never not be filled out. And farther down in the doc, there's a list of heuristics. So first we would look for that. So if someone already filled out the label, exit, don't change it. If not, we would let the user specify alternative label names. And we would have some defaults, which are the Kubernetes app label or the application CRD label that they came up with, app.kubernetes.io name. And then I think maybe more controversial would be, because this one I'm not sure about, number 5 there, if there's exactly one service pointing at something, we could use that potentially. I don't know if there's problems with that. The thing I'm worried about there is if that changes.
Yeah, flip-flop.
So it could flip around, and that would be bad. So maybe we shouldn't do that. So I don't know if we want to do that or not. But then the default would be just to use workload name. So like if this is a deployment, just use a deployment name.
Yeah.
What about doing several steps? Finding deployment and then applying these heuristics?
What's that?
Finding the deployment and applying those heuristics? Like a label on the deployment that pod deployment belongs to?
Yeah, so not sure if I have that in here. Yeah, so there was discussion about doing this at the, so not just doing the pods, but yeah, doing this at work at
Deployment. Yeah.
Initiating the deployment. I think that's a good question. If they put the label in the deployment, do we copy it down to the pod? I think, yeah, we should. Seems reasonable.
So only 5 seems like not correct. But
Yeah.
apart from that,
So I don't know what would happen if we did that one.
I mean, I think six is always going to be available.
Yeah.
And it seems that default is. I cannot think of a situation where 5 would be
Better.
better. Well, except I mean, if you have a service name that's named more meaningfully than the name of the workload,
Yeah.
yes,
Or
then
if you have a service that points to like 5 deployments, but typically they'll have some other label they're using
Right.
in the service.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think.
Right.
All these things though can change. It's not just the service, right? You could change the name of a label or change the value of a label, right?
Yeah. But that's going to change.
Well, but change of value of the label is a deliberate action, whereas adding a new service, you may not even be thinking about any of this, right? You added a new service to point to the same pod, and now your metrics are.
And now when you restart the
Right.
pod, yeah, so that's the use case I was worried about. I add a new service. It still has canonical service based on service. Now I restart and that goes away.
Yep.
Right, and now it's a workload name. And that seems bad.
Or you can change the label in a pod. That would trigger it to belong to multiple services. It's
Yeah, or you change some other label. Yeah. So that seems bad. So yeah, maybe we should. So maybe I'll put it. I'll put an extra one, and maybe take that one out. Yeah. So I think the main. So actually, originally, there was a whole bunch of discussion about different possible names for this concept. But then Doug mentioned canonical service, and that seemed great. So there's still a list of alternative names if people have other ideas, but I actually like canonical service, so I'm happy with that. But yeah, that's basically a pretty simple proposal.
Okay.
So hi, this is Jay at Red Hat in Kiali. I had a couple questions just because I haven't quite wrapped my head around exactly what the benefits here are with regards to how it plays with like the current app label. Is this something that's trying to replace the app label? So when we talk about showing a topology graph of your mesh, if you look in Kiali today, there's pretty natural grouping of versions, for example, by app based on the app label and the stuff that comes in telemetry. So I'm trying to figure out how this then plays into that.
So I think it's not quite a replacement for app label, but it sort of is in that it's meant to be consistent across an entire mesh and across so yeah, we could say actually the app label is the thing, So that's an alternative, is you say, we're not introducing a new label, we're gonna use the app label, but we're gonna autofill it if it's not specified. So I think that would be an alternate proposal. But yeah, it's basically used for the same purpose that we're using the app label there. It's just, we're trying to guarantee it always exists and it's always filled out.
So with regards to telemetry, today, for example, you get the destination app label, say in request total, right? I mean, would there be any reason to even keep that in telemetry other than for back compatibility or something? Or would we want to then migrate to this idea of the canonical service, which might be the app, but could also be other things, whatever strategy you're trying to use?
I think we would probably migrate away from the app label if we had this, right? The reason we had that originally was to sort of allow for this kind of thing. I don't know what other people.
I mean, they're serving the same function basically, right? Like if app label was already used consistently everywhere and it was already the standard, then we could use that. But this is formalizing that concept, and while formalizing, so I think if the app label name, the name itself was already acceptable to everyone, we probably would have just used that, and then we would have just adopted what we're using. But it is simply not very acceptable to the rest of the community. Plus, now Kubernetes has started using the dot notation in labels to like namespace it and all that. So this is a formalization of kind of the de facto thing that we were using previously. So it makes sense that it replaces it wherever we were using it before. And it should be a smooth changeover, right? Because of this list that Sven just showed, right? Of like the order in which things are consulted. If top 3 things are not there, then it is going to default to the 4th thing, which is already the app label, and the values should match.
Although I think, Jay, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think what he was asking about was more on the consumption side, because we had talked about adding another label to the metrics for canonical service, whereas we already have a label that's destination/source app, and whether that goes away in place of.
Whether the
No, so we have that today. We have a destination. So it's not a label. It's like we extract it as its own. We put it on the telemetry.
We put it on the,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, but there is a label on telemetry. So whether the name of the key will change, like, okay, so that's the question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so I mean, so calling it app was actually a potential in the list of alternative names, right? Calling it app was an option.
Yeah, I saw that. It was, but I mean, it's definitely seems like a good thing, you know. So for example, if people are using app labeling, or if they want to use the Kubernetes, formal the name label or whatever approach they want to use, they end up with at least something given this list of heuristics, So that's good. And Doug's totally right. I pretty much always ask from the consumption side because that's basically what we're trying to do. I'm trying to take the telemetry that gets generated and create these Kiali topology views and stuff like that. Right. So that's what I'm trying to understand is going forward, would we basically, it sounds like what would happen potentially is that this new label gets stored in Prometheus on, say, Istio request total, and we would migrate to using it if it was there. And from a back compatible perspective, we would still use app, destination app, if the new one wasn't there, for example. But if it was, this would be like the new destination app that's our ability to group things, for example, like versions and so forth. But so I had another question a little bit, which is if you're trying to create a selector for a service, yet the value is kind of non-deterministic, right? If you're going through this set of heuristics, to set the field, I guess I didn't quite figure out how you would be able to write a selector if you didn't know what the value was going to be.
So I think we would probably tell people don't use it in a selector unless you're specifying it. Right?
Okay, totally makes sense. Just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to call out in here. Because there is a discussion in the like future work section of that this would be useful. So once this is standardized, then it's actually useful as a best practice to specify it and then use it as a label selector. And we could even get to the point where it's not even a label selector, it's just, so like on a, let's say, authorization policy, rather than saying, here's the label selector of workloads that this attaches to, you just say, here's the canonical service that it attaches to. Or like we could actually pull that up as a field and say selector canonical service. But we wanted to leave that out of the proposal. But I think to do that, yes, we'd have to, you don't want to have it be changing because then your policies would change.
Yeah.
Which is another reason actually that the service, having it based on like checking for one and only one service is probably bad, dangerous. Because you don't want it to change. It should only change if they're actually changing if the user is changing their pod in some way, right? So if it's based on app label, if they change the app label, right, it changes. That seems fine.
For policy?
Well, so if you have a policy that said if app label is foo and you go and change your workload to no longer be foo, then that policy no longer applies.
Right, so isn't
That's
a non-desirable?
no, that's how it's supposed to work. That's how our policy selection works, right?
The app label is considered secure for policy.
Well, so if you did that, right, because you can say this policy applies to the thing with this label.
Yeah, it's not different than changing labels.
Yeah,
Right, I agree. Just this question is where the labels themselves are
Right, that's what.
a good way to specify policies.
Yeah, I mean, we do, I guess best practice on policy is do it at namespace level, not.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because you don't, for that reason, it's easy to change your
It's
label
too easy to change labels.
and break your policies. So yeah, maybe we never get to that point because maybe we say, hey, policies you should be doing this at namespace level.
Right.
Any other questions?
I guess the only other thing I would say is that it would seem like maybe a natural extension to also get into the version. I think there was a sidebar comment in the doc. It seems like an advantage here is that this would kind of cover the Istio app and version, the Istio app approach, but then also the Kubernetes name label kind of now funnels them all into one thing, whereas you've got the same kind of situation with version because the Kubernetes label's not version, it's the whatever that other name is.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of a similar little issue there.
I mean, the app version? Is that the...
Yeah.
Well, you guys have app and version labels in Istio, whereas
Right.
Kubernetes uses different standardized labels for those two things.
I guess.
If there was a canonical version potentially that funneled different approaches for version naming into one place, maybe it would be useful. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I actually agree. And funnily enough, we're looking at a highlighted paragraph that I added in response to that thread, calling that out as an opportunity for future work. I think getting into versioning and revisions or whatever we want to call it is a very necessary thing to deal with a lot of the user journeys that that people using Istio are going to want to deal with. So I completely agree. I just don't know that we want to bite off all of that in one proposal.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the things that people do today with Istio, right? App and version label are used today. So just by that logic, it would seem like if we have the desire to address both, then this is the place to do it. It doesn't seem like it's too much to bite off or something like that.
You think we should just add it to this?
Yeah, but it seems we should add it to this proposal because it is like we actually, even in our documentation, we expect both those things. We show it in like A/B testing and rollouts and things like that, subsets. So it would seem logical that we actually do the whole thing together.
Yeah, okay, we can add it. I'm fine with that. If Daniel, you're fine with that.
I mean, the heuristic could be as simple as either they fill it in manually, or it's the Kubernetes label, or it's the version label.
Yeah, yeah. So we'd have to figure out the right heuristic, but yeah, seems fine.
Yeah, the tougher part would be defaulting when nothing exists.
Yeah, no, that's what I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to come up with something.
Right.
Because if you want it to always exist, yeah, you have to figure out. Does Kubernetes?
It doesn't have to always exist, right? That's the difference.
I think so.
You could always just call it
V0.
default or
Yeah, you can have
latest or something.
default version.
Right. And latest might work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we would want to fill it out with something. Just so it's always because there's a lot of benefits. That's actually part of why this proposal exists. Because there's a lot of benefits if something is always present, because then it's reliable for all the UI and like y'all can rely on it and say, yes, I know this will always be present. I don't have to have a bunch of special cases when it's not there.
Right.
Don't forget our favorite unknown.
Unknown.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah, many of those. Yes. From a labeling standpoint, there is already I think we are going to work on it in 1.5 anyway, but we already have a lot of duplication of labels and information that's encoded twice in different forms. So if we decide to add a new key, a new label with Canonical Service and Canonical Service version 1, and we also have app and version. So I think we will need to decide,
Figure out how to migrate.
figure out how to migrate, because that is just going to make the situation worse, at least in the interim of having even more labels, which carry the same information, fortunately. So it's not going to change the cardinality, but it's still just going to add.
Yeah, so I mean, we have a couple options. You could just drop them and then make the dashboards more tolerant.
Okay, so we should also add. So we should definitely add to this doc about the existing. I didn't even know there was an existing app label. When did you guys add that?
Oh, that.
It's been there for a long time.
It's been there for
From the beginning.
I missed that.
Yeah.
It's from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's there.
It's pretty old.
In fact, the service was derived from it.
From it, yeah.
Okay, but it's like an attribute. There's actually an
it's just
attribute.
it's expression.
Just first option.
Is it an attribute or is it a label attached to the metric?
Hold on. I'll
It's
show you.
a label attached to the metric.
Okay.
This
That's
is
not an
it.
attribute.
Look at this. So this is the metric definition. We have source app, but the source label is app,
And
destination.
someone made a comment about unknown. So that's
Yes.
great.
Well, unknown, yeah.
Unknown for everything, but yes.
Except for permissive response code.
Can you add the link to that as a comment in the doc or something?
Yes.
Was it destination.app or source or both?
Both
Sorry.
source app, destination app. Yeah.
I'm gonna put it at the bottom and then you can move it. So you can figure out. Okay. But
Do you have apps for Istio itself, like gateways? Are they apps or what are they? Right.
Gateways apps. I don't know if the gateways have app labels. I think they do though.
Should they? Is that an app? What is a gateway here?
We treat it as a. Yeah, we treat it as a service.
So does it usually get unknown, or I guess if they use an app label, I guess not.
Well, we apply them, so we get Istio-Ingress
So
gateway.
It is an app, right?
Yeah.
It's an app, yeah.
Okay, so if we decide, hey, we're replacing destination app, destination version, source app, source version, and we have a migration plan for how to migrate to those. Okay. Part of this. We should also come up with names, metric label names.
Right.
Okay.
So, is there other things that people want to talk about before we transition? So I think we're under, by Friday, we have to have a 1.5 plan.
Yes.
And I don't know that we have started development of that at all.
Yes.
I think we have some fuzzy ideas, so I don't know if we want to go through a 1.5 planning exercise now.
So for 1.5 planning, there are
Is there another doc that exists?
no, that
Okay.
doc doesn't exist, but okay, let's see some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's gonna pull up ZenHub too. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I put this out to everyone. Like, what do we think the top issues are that need to be resolved for 1.5? Are you going to present?
No. In terms of, so we have to basically get V2 telemetry to be configurable. That's kind of one of the top level things, and we can fill out the details.
Okay.
And then the Istio extensibility API and extensions distribution.
Okay.
And extensions SDK. So extensions SDK is kind of joined between us and the data plane team, but
so that's all for V2 work. Are there other things going on that we think we should focus on for 1.5? And I'll take a look through the.
One thing I was going to mention, the Envoy custom tags PR was merged yesterday, so that might give us some opportunity to improve the information with the trace data.
okay, cool.
Okay.
I was going to ask about the proposal we had talked about in the 1.4 time frame around getting the requested host into the telemetry. Do you guys recall that one?
I do. I thought that work had been done in the V2.
I don't think so.
Wait, no, what's the
original host, basically, when you change when you redirect from one service to another service, we want to preserve the original service.
the host, right? The host name.
I don't know. Either way, it depends, I guess.
So this is sort of restoring the function of origin, right?
Oh, the origin dot attributes.
It's not origin, it's more what was asked for. If you send to service A and then networking API changes to service B, you lose service A in telemetry.
Right. It had to do with being able to represent more easily in the graph what was asked for and then what the result was.
Okay.
I can find that proposal, although it might be down there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out because I remember this conversation. I thought work had been done. I guess we hadn't done any work. I don't see it.
I'll track it down.
Okay.
I'll track down the proposal at least, and then I'll hit you on Slack with that or something. Or let me see if I can find it now.
I know of little things that I would like to put on this list, which are improving the gRPC telemetry.
Yes.
That was my next thing. That one's been dragging for a long time.
Right. Every time someone volunteers to do it, they get taken off to do something else.
The TLS telemetry and the error telemetry, that is also I think we have talked,
Mirage.
yeah, Niraj is not here today, but yes, so TLS telemetry is actually.
So there's two types, there's error and then there's a source TLS telemetry.
Yes.
Unfortunate part is that we need source telemetry for errors.
Right.
So, okay.
TCP.
I was gonna say what's going on with TCP.
Correct. Yeah, TCP with telemetry, exactly. Right.
So you had mentioned earlier wanting to, and we've talked about it, I feel like the last 3 releases, but never done it. Do we want to codify the metric schema as an API? Do we want to make changes to it to address the way it is? Do we want to have a rethink of it?
Yeah.
Is that something we should do?
Yeah, I think we should definitely do that.
It's going to be a gradual process. I mean, this app discussion is also part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess the general question there is going to be whether we promote what is or whether we design what we want it to be, and then that becomes the support schema. So I think the community feedback is, especially from the consumption standpoint, is going to be most important here.
I don't see any huge feature. I'm just sort of trying to flip through the GitHub backlog right now. What do we want to try and accomplish in 1.5 for legacy mixer and out of process adapter support? All the docs have sort of fallen into bit rot. And there's a bunch of issues open related to people trying to use it now.
So I think evaluation of whether we want direct support for existing OOP from the proxy will have to be there.
Okay. Sort of not tied to release, but I was also thinking one of the things we should do is think whether or not we want to rename this working group to be extensibility and focus on that as the versus policy and telemetry.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we are also internally renaming extensions and telemetry.
Okay, is there anything else that anyone has? 25 agenda. Oh. Thanks, Jay.
that was the doc that we had the discussion around, and
so one more so one more thing we should add there is story around rate limiting. Now that mixer-based rate limiting is not the story going forward, how do we use Envoy native rate limiting, and kind of what's the story around it? So we need to have a
Plan.
have a plan there.
I'll be so happy when we no longer have mixer-based rate limiting, because I feel like there's,
Well, wait until you debug Envoy based.
well, the stream of issues related to the inexact nature and everything else is just, it's very hard to test. But yes, I haven't tried to debug the Envoy ones yet either.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess.
Yeah. So we can put some more details on this. And,
Take an action item to sort of work on that. Anything else that we think we should talk about?
and so anything else from Kiali or any other consumer standpoint that we need here?
no, not that I see.
Okay.
Are we satisfied with things like telemetry about the gateways themselves and black hole and pass-through clusters? Or do we think we're in a good spot with that?
Egress gateway needs work.
Yeah.
Need to figure out how to represent it. I think there are issues because it's been conflated with Ingress gateway, so it doesn't really show the right things.
Middle proxy as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we don't really have middle proxy, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think middle proxy has the same, very similar issues.
I know someone had requested we have both client and server metrics for the gateways. And I don't know if that's feasible for 1.5, but something we could think about.
It's probably easier in V2.
It's definitely easier in V2.
So actually, egress gateway in V2 is just broken right now.
It's not easier. I mean, what do you expect there to be? It's just one proxy.
No. So egress gateway is broken because metadata exchange is tied.
Yeah, but it also probably breaks tracing and that kind of stuff because it probably sends trace context outside.
Right. So egress is right now exchanging metadata with the
It's doing all the
side.
wrong things because it expects external world to be Istio, and
Right.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
In general, I think we need to find places where we're sending right. I've seen this before where we're leaking node metadata and things.
Oh yeah.
So. Gary, is there work that we need to do to support the Jaeger operator with install or anything? Is there anything that I'm forgetting about on that side of it?
I don't know. We haven't had a discussion since, because the original position was try and keep the installation in Istio as simple as possible. And if you wanted to do an external or more complicated external installation, then you'd use the operator. But I mean, I have seen that I think there's integration with the Prometheus operator. So it's kind of set the precedent of using that. So we could look at using the Jaeger operator directly.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, would you want it still to just have a particular simple configuration? as its default, or would you want it to also be able to support some of the other, storage options like Cassandra or Elasticsearch?
So I had been in the position that all I wanted to do was, all I was hoping this deal would do was have the simple support. But now with the Prometheus stuff, it seems like we're trending towards getting rid of the simple support and just jumping full on to the operator.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's what we want to do in 1.5 for Jaeger too, is just sort of point everyone at the operator and say the only way to do it is through the operator. I don't know how feasible that is.
Are there any drawbacks of using Jaeger operator versus just the plain Jaeger charts? Is it harder?
No, I mean the operator, in theory, should make it easier.
Okay, yeah. So
I mean, what's the date for 1.5?
middle of February.
Is that right?
Yeah, which means most of the stuff should be done by the middle of January or third week. Okay, so that's a big list.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, a lot of this is probably not getting done.
Yeah, I mean with Christmas as well, it's going to be that might be pushing it.
Yeah, we have 10 working days, then people break, then
Yeah, and then
15 more working days.
Yes. Oh God, that's a lot of stuff.
But most important is to make progress at least on the runtime part. And I don't think we can really release SDK. It's too ambitious.
Right. Yeah. So actually, we can when we actually put and size it, it's not prioritized, and yeah, we can clearly see that it's not all going to fit in 1.5. But it's still good to have that list.
Okay, well, unless there's other things to talk about or discuss, I think we've sort of done it. It's almost time anyways.
Yeah.
Does anyone out there want to ask any questions about anything or bring anything up? Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Right. Thanks. Bye.